Okay, good evening, everyone. So, in the yesterday's session, we completed the RDS, right? Okay. So, in the RDS, we only get the SQL databases. In the databases, we have a SQL and NoSQL databases. Now we are going to discuss about a service called DynamoDB. So, actually, the DynamoDB is a type of a NoSQL database, which is a NoSQL database. And if you know these things like Cassandra or MongoDB, these all are the NoSQL databases. But on Amazon platform, AWS is providing you the only NoSQL database, which is DynamoDB. DynamoDB is Amazon's proprietary NoSQL database. So whenever your organization have a requirement of NoSQL database, then you have to choose the DynamoDB. That is the only option available on AWS platform. If you discuss about the DynamoDB, DynamoDB is AWS managed serverless high performance NoSQL database engine. DynamoDB is AWS managed. What is the meaning of AWS managed? We are not responsible for maintaining the DynamoDB service. Amazon will install the database software in the backend, and they will make sure that the database will be up and running all the time. It is like high performance NoSQL database, which will provide single digit millisecond latency. What is the meaning of a single digit millisecond latency? Single digit means up to 9, it is a single digit, right? 1 to 9. So you will get the latency of maximum 9 millisecond. You don't get like 10 millisecond latency or 11 millisecond latency. Single digit millisecond latency means that is the lowest latency in which you will get the high performance. Whenever your application is trying to get the data, obviously the data will be returned with high speed. So where exactly they can use the NoSQL database? Any idea? Whenever you need a lot of data to be read and write quickly, a lot of data like tens and thousands of records per second to be read and write. Wait a second. Okay. So whenever your application requires tens and thousands of records per second to be read and write. Wait a second. Okay. If I got some disturbance, I will see. What are we discussing? Okay, the use case of the NoSQL database, right? When to use the NoSQL database? Whenever the application requires a huge amount of data to be read and write per second, and if the data to be loaded quickly without any delay, in that case, we have to use the NoSQL databases. Just give me 2 minutes. Okay, then let us continue now. I will give a simple example where exactly the NoSQL databases will be used. Any guess? Let us say if you are playing online games, like let us say the car racing or some kind of online games, what it requires? The data to be quickly updated and the data to be quickly retrieved, and that has to be displayed on the screen, right? Every millisecond, the data to be stored, and every millisecond the data to be updated. That is the first use case. In the all online gaming, they will use the NoSQL database. And if you see the share market kind of a thing, so every second the data to be updated, right? In that case also, the data to be loaded quickly. So they will prefer NoSQL database. And if you heard about like IoT, what is that IoT? Have you heard about like IoT? Internet of Things, right? So if you see these kind of projects like street lights and all the things, what they will do? Like every second, they will send the data to the centralized server. Based on the data, they will identify that whether the street light is on or off. So every second, they will update the status. So such kind of incidents or such kind of scenarios, you have to use the NoSQL databases. Every organization will prefer NoSQL databases whenever there is a huge read and write operations and the data to be loaded with very low latency. So the use case of the DynamoDB are like online games or some kind of what we call that IoT applications. And whenever your application requires huge amount of data to be read and write with very low latency, and that will be single digit millisecond latency. In that case, we will prefer the NoSQL databases. And on Amazon platform, we have only one database called DynamoDB. So if you go for SQL databases, a single database can contain multiple tables and lot of things. And this NoSQL database looks like a simple Excel sheet. And we call that as a table. DynamoDB is called as a table, which contains a single table and multiple rows and columns. If you open an Excel sheet, how it looks like? Just a combination of rows and columns. The same way the DynamoDB table looks like. Now what we do is, we are responsible to create the DynamoDB table, and we are responsible for configuring backups, like automated backups and manual snapshots. And if something went wrong, you're responsible to recover the data by using automated snapshots or manual snapshots or even point-in-time recovery. We are not responsible for creating the tables or maintaining the data. That will be taken care by the database administrators. Especially these DynamoDB tables will be maintained and used by the developers. They will integrate the application with the table, DynamoDB table, and the application will continuously load and write the data. So what we do is, let us try to create a DynamoDB table in Northern Virginia region. And I mentioned that it is serverless, right? What is the meaning of a serverless? There is no server running with a provisioned capacity like CPU or RAM. Instead, you have to select a capacity, like I need 25 capacity units, 10 capacity units, such kind of a thing. So to provide that much capacity, whatever the CPU and RAM is required, that will be provided automatically by the provider. So we are not going to worry about the CPU and RAM. Just you are going to select how many read units and how many write units we need. Based on that, the AWS will provide all the CPU and RAM in the backend. That is what the serverless is. Create a DynamoDB table in Northern Virginia region using 5 read capacity units. I can say both 5 read and write capacity units. And here we are going to mention about a specific term called the DynamoDB is a decouple, like read and write operations are decoupled. Read and write operations are decoupled. What is the meaning of decouple? What is the meaning of a decouple? Like there is two concepts, decouple and tightly coupled. Let us say I have a laptop and I am using a database in this. Let us say there are my RAM is 8 GB and 8 GB RAM can support 1000 operations. totally 1000 operations altogether. Assume that if there are 1000 read operations are happening, there will be no write operation happen, right? But decouple means it will divide a separate resources for read operations and write operations. If your database is experiencing more number of read operations, that will not impact the write action, because they will separately allocate the capacity for read operations and write operations. So that even though you are getting more number of read operations, it will not impact the performance of the write operations. Okay, right. So now we will see how to create it. Just you don't need to get into more about the DynamoDB. You have to know about what is DynamoDB, how to create the table, how to configure the backups, how to restore. And in addition to that, we will discuss about one more component called DAX, which will improve the performance of the DynamoDB table. Okay, all right. So here, go to your Amazon account and in the search box, type for DynamoDB. And you can see managed NoSQL database. That is a NoSQL category of a database, which is managed by AWS. You are not responsible for DynamoDB management. So you will get into this page. And first thing, is it a free tier eligible? Is it a free tier eligible? Yes, it is a free tier eligible up to 25 GB of data. Let me show you. How to check whether a service is free tier eligible or not? You have to go to aws.amazon.com/free. So whenever you're creating a DynamoDB, you are going to select the read units and write units. How many read units and how many write units are free tier eligible? So you can see Amazon DynamoDB, which is always free. Even after 1 year also, you can use the DynamoDB for free. But the limit is you have to use less than 25 GB of a storage. And then you can use up to 25 write capacity units and 25 read capacity units. If you are using more than 25 capacity units, then you are not eligible for free tier. And moreover, per month, you can use up to 200 million requests. 1 million is 10 lakhs, right? 200 million means 10 into 200. So those many requests you can send, like read and write requests. If you are exceeding more than those many requests, then all the additional requests you will be charged. But for practice purpose, this is more than enough, right? Okay, so no need to worry about the DynamoDB charges because we never store more than 25 GB. Hardly we will store few KBs of data for practice purpose, and we will see how to create. So once you are into the DynamoDB table, you have to click on create table. Then you will get into this page. So here you can give some name. I can say some random data. You can use any table name, that doesn't matter. And also I think it doesn't support the spaces. You cannot use space. And partition key. No need to worry about what is this partition key and everything. Whenever you got a requirement, they will provide you what kind of keys you have to create. What I do here is name. And that should be string. String means which contains alphanumerical characters. Okay, then sort key, these all are optionals. Based on the sort key, it will be sorted out, like alphabetical order or incremental order and all these things. And here you can click on create table, but don't create that, because if you click on create table, your DynamoDB table will be created with all default options. We have to create according to the requirements, right? So here you can select customize settings. Customize settings, and now you have to select all the options required. The first option is the DynamoDB table class. What is the use case? Whatever the data you are going to store into the DynamoDB, is that frequently accessed or infrequently accessed? If the data is going to be read regularly, then you have to select standard. Like same as the S3. If your data is like occasionally accessed, then you can select standard IA, so that the charges will be less. Let me select DynamoDB standard. Then we have two different options, on demand and provision. What is the meaning of on demand? So under the capacity mode, there are two different options. One is a on demand and the second one is a provision. If you select on demand, according to the requirement of your application, automatically the read and write units will be adjusted. If suddenly you got more number of read operations, automatically it will increase the read capacity. Based on your on-demand requirement, Amazon will adjust the capacity. No need to select any read units or write units. But if you select provision, provision means you are going to allocate some capacity, right? Again, in the provision mode, we have a auto scaling on or off. What is the meaning of auto scaling? Automatically it will scale up. Let us say here, you can see minimum you can start with 1 unit, which can be increased up to 10. When it should be increased? 70% utilization. And you can change like 80% utilization. Whenever the 80% of the utilization, let us say 5. Whenever 4 capacity units are getting utilized, then automatically the 5 will become a 6. The 6 will become 7. Maximum it will go up to 10. That is what the meaning of a auto scaling. What if I select auto scaling off? Maximum I will get 5. I will be charged for 5 capacity units and the 5 will be available even there is no load. And if suddenly if I got more load, read operations, it will not increase from 5. Obviously, we will go with auto scaling on. And for making auto scaling on, you will not be charged any additional amount. Whenever the read units are more than 80% utilized, then a new capacity unit will be provisioned. Whatever the new units provision, only for that you will be charged for that specific amount of time. After 1 hour, if the capacity has been reduced back to 5, then you will be charged for only 5. So as I said that the read and write of capacity units are decoupled, you have to select the read capacity and write capacity individually. You can select different capacity units. Generally, if you consider Amazon online store, obviously the read units are more, right? Read operations will be more than write operations. So you can allocate more read capacity and you can select less read capacity also. Depending on the requirement, you can select all the options. Then just scroll down. And based on the things, wait, what happened here? Read capacity is 5 and write capacity is 10. And here I will be charged this much amount. Per month, $3 approximately. And then encryption at rest. You can select the type of KMS key and then click on create table. So in this table, how many columns we created? Only one column, which is a name, right? The advantage of the NoSQL database is you can create as many columns as you need when you are writing the data. No need to wait for database administrator to create the new column first and then to add the data. On the fly, you can create as many columns as you need and you can upload the data. So here you can see this is the DynamoDB. What I do is we will check by default the automated snapshots are going to be enabled or not. But in our terms, technical things, there is no automated snapshot. I will show you. So if you click on the random data table, you can see some tabs here. Out of all these, overview means it will show you all the data, right? And here you can see there is one option called backups. If you click on the backup, what you can see here is point in time recovery. What happened to the point in time recovery? Disabled. So by default, the point in time recovery will be disabled and you have to enable manual. Click on edit and you have to select enable point in time recovery and you have to click on save changes. So now we enable the point in time recovery and whatever the modifications you have done on the data, those information will be maintained as a record. Now I will store some data and I would like to check what is the data available in this particular table. How to check is go back to your tables, click on the table, and here you can see one option called explore table items. Click on the explore table items. And here you can see there is no items available. Click on create item. Item means the data record. Click on create item, name. This is the only column, right? I will say name 1, create item. And I would like to create one more item like name 2. But this time, whenever I am going to add a third record, I would like to store some more information about a person called name 3. In that case, I can click on create item. I will say name 3. And here I will click on add new attribute, string. I can say comments. Some random comments you can type and you can click on create item. So to create the data, whatever. You can see that without having a column, while you are updating the data, you can create all the required columns. So in the, let us say if you are getting some, what we call that, raw data, unformatted data. So if the data is not available in a proper format, if you are getting some junk data, to store such kind of data, you can use the NoSQL databases. Let us say if you create a SQL database with only name and comments. Suddenly, if you got an information or you got some data along with a mobile number, which you cannot store in the SQL database unless you create or modify the table with a new column called mobile number. But in the NoSQL database, it is best suitable for storing unformatted data. And even for data analysis also, they will use the DynamoDB tables to store some kind of a key values. Like they can store this, they can use the DynamoDB table to store all the encryption keys for different applications, or some kind of passwords, API keys, for any purpose they can use. Okay, so now can we create any manual snapshot of the DynamoDB table? So if you click on the tables, you can see the list of all the DynamoDB tables. Now what I do is I would like to take a manual snapshot. Go to the backups, and here you can see one option called backups. But here there is no backup available. You can click on create backup, and you can see, scroll down, and you can click on create backup. So a manual backup will be created. By using the manual backup, you can use or you can restore your data. Wait, what happened here? Okay, it seems backup with DynamoDB. Backup name, I can say manual backup. Just use the customize. It seems the options were wrong. Select manual backup, and backup management is using backup with DynamoDB, and click on create backup. So a backup will be created, and you can see the backup here, which contains 3 entries of data. And this was created at what we call at so and so time. But generally the manual backup is not that much useful, because we have the advanced backup called point in time recovery. And if I try to add some more information into the DynamoDB table, like let me add one more value, name 4. This name 4 is not available in the manual backup, right? At what time we created the data? 6:31. I will wait for 2 minutes till 6:33, and I will delete some random data. And then we will see how to recover. The restoration, backups, everything is same as the regular RDS backups, RDS database. Let us wait for 1 more minute, because at 6:31, we have all the 4 entries. And at 6:33, I will delete some 3 entries of data. And by using the point in time recovery, we will try to restore our database back. Okay. So let us wait for 1 more minute. In the meanwhile, let me click on this. If you go to the backups, and you cannot see any point in time recovery backup option here. But here you can use the restore option. Is there any way that we can configure automated backup for the DynamoDB tables? Yes, you can. Here you have to click on create and you can use schedule backups. But already we enabled the point in time recovery. So hence automated backups are not useful. So it will take you to a new page where you have to create a plan for automated backup schedules so that every day at so and so time that will be created. You can use like daily backup, 35-day retention, or you can create a new plan also. You can select like how many frequency, retention period, date, time, everything you can select. But as we enable the point in time recovery, what we call that, the automated backups is not required. Okay, it seems 6:33 p.m. Now I will delete some data. Click on explore table items. Select some data, like I would like to delete few entries. Select the entries, click on actions and delete items. So we lost 2 entries of data. And now how to recover those deleted entries is you have to click on your table, then go to the backups tab. In the place where we enable the point in time recovery, you can see one option called restore. Click on the restore. And I would like to restore my database back to 6:32 p.m. because at 6:33 I deleted the data. So 1 minute before I would like to restore. So here I can say a different name called restored table. It will not restore the data into the same table. And here select the specified date and time. Select today's date, August 1st, and time will be 18:33 hours, minutes and seconds. 18 means 6 p.m. 33 minutes and 0 seconds. And here restore the entire table. So entire table will be restored. And where you would like to restore it, in the same region or in a different region, even that is also possible. Select the same region, click on restore. So a new DynamoDB table will be created with all 4 entries, including the data which we deleted mistaken. So just wait, let me go back to the tables. This one, just refresh and you can see a new table which is getting restored. So this is how you can restore your database. Once it got restored, we will explore the items and we will observe all the 4 items got restored or not. For certification point of view, you have to identify that the DynamoDB is a NoSQL database and which is AWS managed serverless database, which supports high auto scaling, which is highly available with low latency, and the latency will be single digit millisecond latency. These are the points you have to remember for certification point of view. The DynamoDB and the next one, which is a Redshift, those are only required for the certification point of view. Just you can expect one question on that, the type of a database or about like a snapshots recovery. Only for that you will get. That is not required for certification point of view. In the real time, the DynamoDB is most important for developers. If you are working as a developer, then you must know a NoSQL database. If you already know the NoSQL database, DynamoDB is the same thing. There is no difference. If you already know Oracle, you can use the Oracle on RDS. You might not be able to create the RDS instance unless you are working as a solutions architect. Okay, just give me a second. Let me refresh. And you can see still the database is restoring. You have to wait for some time. And also to improve the performance of the NoSQL database, Amazon is providing you DAX, DynamoDB Accelerator. Have you ever heard about like in-memory databases? In-memory database, Redis, Memcached. Okay, so I think you know about the CloudFront, right? What is the CloudFront? CloudFront. That is not related to the database, but what is a CloudFront? It acts as a cache, right? So the DAX is a type of an in-memory database which acts as a cache for your DynamoDB tables. So all the data will be stored into, frequently accessed data will be stored into the DAX cluster so that the performance will be improved far better than a regular DynamoDB. That is called as a DAX, DynamoDB Accelerator. So here you can write down about, they might ask you like, what is a DAX? DynamoDB Accelerator, which is called as DAX. So you can say DAX is an in-memory database for DynamoDB to improve the performance of the DynamoDB table. So DAX acts as a cache for DynamoDB, and it will improve the improve the performance of read and write operations. In the same way, for the RDS also, we have an in-memory database that we can discuss later. Just we have to know the terminology. We don't work on all those things. If someone asks you like, what is a DAX? You have to identify that is an in-memory database for DynamoDB table to improve the performance. Actually, that was a kind of a cache, database cache, so that it will store all the frequently accessed data and it will improve the read and write operations. In the same way, for the RDS, we have an elastic cache, which acts as an in-memory database for RDS. Again, in that we have two different engines that we can see later. And in the DynamoDB, we have another concept called global tables. What is that global tables? What is the meaning of a global? What is the meaning of a global? So we created our DynamoDB table in Northern Virginia, right? Okay. So let me show you how it works. So let us say you created your DynamoDB table in the Northern Virginia region. And if your applications or users are spread across the globe, let us say few people are in Mumbai and few people are in like Singapore and few people are in like London. So whenever they're trying to access the data like this, they will get some delay, right? They will get some delay and the performance is not that much good. So what we can do is by using the global tables for the DynamoDB, you can maintain the replica of the same table across different regions, like read replica in RDS. So all the data will be replicated from your actual DynamoDB table to all the replicas across the globe, so that the people from the London can connect to this particular database and they can read and write the data. Not write, actually read the data, because these are the replicas of your primary database. Like in the RDS, we created the read replica, right? The same way here, you can create unlimited replicas using the global table. Your DynamoDB table will be available at multiple regions so that the read performance will be improved. That is what global tables. Just let us write down the point about that. By using the global tables, we can maintain the replica of the DynamoDB table across multiple regions to improve the performance. To improve the performance. And these DAX, DynamoDB Accelerator, those are not a free tier eligible. You will be charged if you create the DynamoDB Accelerator. But I will show you how to create. I will show you till the last step. But I don't want to click on create so that you can get some idea how a DynamoDB Accelerator looks like. Actually, there's a kind of a cluster where you can create multiple nodes. Instead of a single server, the DynamoDB Accelerator is available as a cluster, which is the combination of 1 to 10 individual servers. So all the servers will form as a cluster and they will provide the services individually. I think we have to verify that we got all the data back to the restored DynamoDB table or not. And then I will show you how to create the DynamoDB Accelerator. And then we can see what is this global tables. So here, this is the restored table, which is active. How to check the data? Click on that particular table, click on explore table items, and you should have seen 4 items. The same as the RDS, the restore, backups, everything will work in the same way. Now, already I mentioned about the DAX cluster, right? DynamoDB Accelerator cluster. How to create a DynamoDB Accelerator for that newly created database. You can click on clusters and you can click on create cluster. Practically is not required, just you can see here. You can give some name, some random name. I can say random cluster. Description, you can use any description, that doesn't matter. And what type of family you would like to create, like T3, T2, R type, we have a lot of, right? What type you would like to create. So if you select all families, you can select from the list, node types. Let me go with T type family, T2.small, in which I will get 1 CPU and 2 GB of RAM. That means the DAX can maintain 2 GB of data because they don't have any storage. All the data will be available in the memory. Always the memory is the fastest when comparatively with the hard disk, right? So that's how you can improve the performance. How much data you would like to maintain in the cache? Based on that, you can select the node type. And then cluster size, how many you need. By default, it will be selected as a 3, and 3 is a recommended for high availability. Maximum you can select 11. Even you can go with 1 also, but it will give some message that it will reduce the availability. Because in which availability zone the node is getting created, if the availability zone goes down, there will be no, what we call that, DAX. That's why it is recommended to select minimum 3. And at any time you can increase and you can decrease the number. Then click on next. So here you can subnet group, you can choose an existing one, that doesn't matter. But here we don't have any existing, right? So you have to select create new. You can give some name, DAX subnet group. And in which VPC you would like to create, and in which subnets you would like to create. Select multiple subnets. And then security group. You have to create a new security group. In that, you have to open the 8111 port. You have to open 8111. Even you can use the default one, but you have to update the security group later. Or first you can create a security group in which you have to open 8111 port. And if you are using encryption in transit encryption, then you have to open 9111 port also. So the recommended ports to be opened is 8111 and 9111. And then availability zone allocation, you can select automatic or you can select specify manually. In which availability zone you would like to create all your nodes, that you can select here. Always it is recommended to spread across multiple availability zones. Then click on next. So here For what purpose you would like to create? Only for read operation or for both read and write operations? That depends, right? So I can give some name, DAX to DynamoDB. This is the role which provide permission to the DAX cluster to read and write the data to and from your DynamoDB table. And then role policy, you can select read or write or read only. Based on that, the role will be created automatically. No need to worry about that. We don't create any IAM role. And here you can select a table and you can select the table. So for that table, the DAX will maintain the cache and it will improve the performance. And finally, you can click on next. And here you can click on next and scroll down and click on create cluster. So the DAX cluster will be created. So from now onwards, the DAX cluster will get an endpoint name. So instead of using the DynamoDB directly, the people will use the DAX cluster endpoint to communicate with your database. So all the traffic will go through the DAX. Like if you remember the load balancer, you have an EC2 instance in which the website is running. Instead of accessing the website using the public IP, all the users will go through the load balancer, right? The same way, all the requests will go through this DAX. That's how the performance will be improved. But don't create, which is not required. And even we cannot observe the performance upgradation because we don't have that much data and we don't have that much load also. But if you have like tens and thousands of users or connections at a time, then you can observe the difference without DAX and with DAX. And coming to the global tables, just you can select the table and you can go there. And you can click on like edit capacity. And you can select all the things. And one more thing, I forgot to mention, let us write down here, to enable the global tables, or to create the global tables feature, the DynamoDB table must be enabled with auto scaling. Auto scaling must be on your DynamoDB table to use the global tables feature. So you can write down like auto scaling feature must be enabled on DynamoDB without enabling the auto scaling for the read and write capacity units. You cannot enable the global tables feature. Actually, I forgot to mention that point, but already on our first DynamoDB table, we enabled the auto scaling, right? For both read and write capacity. What about the second table, which we restored? Does it enable with the auto scaling? No, we have to enable manually. By default, whenever you use the point in time recovery to restore a table, it will not be enabled with auto scaling. Let me show you that. This is the table, right, which we restored table. If you go to the backups, sorry, not the backups. If you go to the additional settings, you can see auto scaling is off. So you have to edit that and click on and then click on save changes. Now the auto scaling is enabled on your restored DB table. Okay. So now let us see how to enable the global tables. Click on global tables. And here you can see the create replica. Global table is nothing but a replica. Create replica. And you can select in which region you would like to create. Click on create replica. This is also not a free tier eligible. But I clicked on create. So a DynamoDB table will be created in Mumbai region, which acts as a replica. All the table will be automatically, all the data will be replicated to the Mumbai region. And by using this endpoint name, the users can connect to the Mumbai DynamoDB table. Okay. All right. So this is about the DynamoDB. For being a solutions architect, you have to understand that how to create the DynamoDB table, how to enable point in time recovery, how to create a manual snapshot, and how to enable global tables. These are the mandatory for as a solutions architect. For maintaining the data and creating some kind of queries, executing queries, that is not our job. That will be taken care by the database administrators. Sometimes they might provide you some queries to execute. Sometimes they might give you some kind of a query to execute, and where that query to be executed. So on the left side, you can see there is one option called particular editor, right? Particular editor. So you have to select that, and here, and this, we have to paste that command, whatever it is. We have to type the command, whatever they provide, and you have to run. And you have to run. Let me click what we call that restore table is there, right? Click on that. Let me click on scan table. Let me click on run. What happened? It scanned and it provided all the data. Okay. Like this, you can use something called some custom queries also, like insert data or select star from a particular column. They might ask you. They will give you the queries. We don't use any queries. So let me say drop item. So let us say drop item. What is the meaning of a drop item? Delete action, right? Okay, so where name equal to name or 2. That means whatever the name 2 entry is there, that will be deleted. But it is not required to know all the queries. Even I don't know, just I'm using the predefined queries. Now, because of this, the name 2 entry will be deleted. Just name 1, name 3, name 4 will be available. If you cross check that by going to the restore table, see here, name 2 got deleted. Sometimes they administrators might provide you the query and they might ask you to execute the query that you have to execute in the particular editor. They will show the list of all the tables. On which table you would like to execute the query. Click on the 3 dots again as that particular table and click on query table. Click on query table. So here, whatever you type here, that will be executed over there. Okay, right. So this is about the DynamoDB. We have one more database category, which is not required for us. That is for a big data certification. That is for big data. So at the time of starting the RDS, what are the 2 different categories of databases available? 2 different categories of databases. Or what is the category of RDS database? OLTP, right? And Amazon is providing you one more category type of a database called OLAP. What is the full form of OLAP? Online analytical processing. Under that category, there is one database called Redshift. There is one database called Redshift on Amazon platform, which is not required for us, but already we covered all the database types. Just let us go through the overview of the Redshift. So Redshift is OLAP kind of category of a database. It is OLAP category. Which is used for data analytics. Also, we can say that Redshift is a data warehousing tool. Whenever they talk about a data warehousing tool, you can use the Redshift as a database for your data warehousing tools. like Hadoop. These all are the data warehousing tools, right? What is a data warehousing? They will collect the data from different sources, and they will load all the data into a single database, and they will run thousands and thousands of queries at a time. Thousands and thousands of queries at a time. So this Redshift is designed to support more read queries, because data analysis is purely based on the data read operations, right? The Redshift is a data warehousing tool which is available under OLAP category, online analytical processing. That is a data warehousing tool. And if you are going for a big data certification, that Redshift is a mandate. Being a solutions architect, we are good with it is a OLAP category, and which is a data warehousing tool. And this is also available under free tier with a limited time. That is not like 1 year free or always free. So let me show you that. Redshift. Only for 2 months are free. This is called as a free trial. Only 2 months free, which is a fast, simple, cost-effective data warehousing. And that is available 750 hours per month up to 2 months. The moment once you start using the Redshift, you cannot use more than 2 months. And in that also, the node is DC2.large. If you use other than DC2.large, you are chargeable. Only DC2.large is free tier eligible. Let me show you that Redshift here. Just type the Redshift in the browser, search box. Fast, simple, cost-effective data warehousing. That is not only the data warehousing tool, the one which is AWS Glue, that is also a data warehousing tool. Okay, click on the Amazon Redshift. So it will take you to the dashboard of the Amazon Redshift, where you can create the Redshift database. And the Redshift database is a petabyte scale database service. It supports petabytes of a data. You can store a huge amount of data. What is the maximum size of the RDS database storage? 16 TB or 64 TB if it's a provisioned IOPS. But this supports petabytes of data. Okay, and this is also available as a serverless. This is available as a cluster and also as well as serverless. No need to worry about CPU, RAM, and all the things. Okay, so here you can see cluster, right? Click on that create cluster, and it will show you like this: production or free trial. Free trial means you will get only one node, but if you go for production, you can create multiple nodes. Cluster. In the multiple nodes, one node will act as a leader and the remaining act as a worker. What is the worker? They will execute the queries and they will collect all the results, and the results will be sent back to the leader. And the leader node will collect all the results, and it will, combine all the results, and it will generate a report. But if you create with as a one node, it will act as a leader and worker. The single server will act as a leader and as well as a worker. And here you can see for 2 nodes, I will be charged $4,694 per month for 256 terabytes of storage. What if I go with maximum 32 terabytes? Sorry, 32 nodes. It will support 4.1 petabytes of storage. And the cost will be $75,000 per month. What if I go with a different node type? Instead of 4x large, if I go with 16x large. And 32 nodes. It supports $300,000 per month. And it supports 4.1 petabytes of data. And if you go for smaller ones, which is DC2.large, and you can go with only one node, that will cost you $180 per month, which can support up to 160 GB only. And if you go with 32 into 160. So you can get 5.1 terabytes of data, which can cost you like $5,000. And that for a month. And in the DC2.large, you can get only 2 CPUs. You don't get more CPUs, just you will get 2 CPUs. So, and still the Redshift is cheaper than the other data warehousing databases. Still the Redshift is cheaper than if you are purchasing a server for data warehousing in your office. Even with that high cost also. Okay, so you have to remember that the Redshift is a data warehousing tool which can support petabyte scale data warehousing tool. I think we can write down like Redshift is a petabyte scale data warehousing tool. I think I have I divided the terms in a wrong way. Data warehousing tool. It supports up to petabytes. Each node can support 128 terabyte, and total you can create up to 32 nodes, 32 into 128. So that will be close to 4 to 5 terabytes. That is the storage you can get. Is there any other, if you go for serverless, let us see the cost of the serverless also. I don't create. So here database name, you can select something. Okay, it seems they are not showing the charges here. They're not showing the charges for this. But if you start using this, it seems $300 credit towards Redshift serverless usage in this account. Okay, but anyways, it seems they are not providing the estimated charges here. So we cannot, we don't know how much you will get at this stage. And you can see for the serverless dashboard, you will get $300 credit. The moment once you try to create, they will give you $300 credit. You can use that within the free trial limit. Okay. All right. So now let us go back to the Redshift. And here also you can upload the queries and everything here using the query editor. And you can use what we call that. Let me go back to the Amazon Redshift. So here clusters, you can create the nodes. So this is the place where you can see the clusters, whatever you got created. And for this, you can purchase the reserved nodes also. If like EC2 instance, we have a reserved instances, right? In that way also you can create that. Like you can purchase reserved nodes. So you will get some discount, but whether you can go with what we call that. Let us go with DC2 for which one we got like $4,000 or something. Okay, I think for DC2.large, we are getting $180 per month, right? Okay. So here for no upfront, you will get $146 instead of $180. And with the 1380, what is the total cost? That is for 1 year, right? 1380 divided by 12. You will get $115 instead of $180. Almost you are getting close to 40% discount. So always if you go for reserved instances, you will get discount. But to go with the reserved instances, you must have that particular tenure usage. Without having a requirement, if you create 1 year term, without using the services, you have to pay the money. Okay. Whenever you see the reserved instance, it will work in the same way. You have to give the commitment for the term and you have to select the payment method, like all upfront, partial upfront, or no upfront. Whether it's a EC2 instance or whether it's a RDS instance or it is a Redshift instance. Do you know that in the RDS also you can get the reserved instances? Have you observed? If you click on the RDS, you can create RDS instances as a reserved instance. So you'll get some kind of discount. There also you have to provide like 1 year or 3 years commit. So on the left side, you can see the reserved instances, right? So here you can purchase the reserved DB instance. So you have to give 1 year or 3 years commitment for that. And you can select no upfront, partial upfront, and full upfront. Okay. So can we create a load balancer with the reserved type of a reserved instance? No, there is no such option. Only for the instances you can create. Load balancer is not an instance. Okay. Database is the instance. EC2 is the instance, right? For that, you can go with the reserved instances. Okay. So this is about the DynamoDB and Redshift. Okay, just you have to go through the basics of these things. Advanced things are not required. Just you have to understand what is the use case and how to create the DynamoDB, how to enable point-in-time recovery, and how to restore it. And if someone asks you to execute a query, where exactly you have to execute the queries. These are the mandatory things you have to know. Apart from that, nothing is not required. Just you have to know the theory. And for the Redshift, you need to understand that the Redshift is a OLAP kind of a category. Only the expected question on the OLAP is they might give you a question like 5 to 6 lines of a question. In that question, the use case will be like data warehousing, like data analysis or something. And they might ask you like which type of database you prefer for this kind of a scenario. That is the only type of a question you can expect in the exam. So whenever you see the data analysis related requirement, you have to pick Redshift because the Redshift is the only Amazon managed database supported or recommended for data analysis. Okay, right. Any questions on this DynamoDB or Redshift? Any questions? Okay, so if you guys are clear, let us stop the session. And tomorrow we can go with Elastic Beanstalk. And that is a kind of a platform as a service. And that is not required for the solutions architect. And we will discuss about that. And we will deploy one sample application using the Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk is a service where you can run your code without provisioning any servers. There's a platform as a service. You can use some kind of a Tomcat application or something. And we can deploy the Tomcat application using Elastic Beanstalk. Okay, right. And if you guys are clear, let us stop the session and let us continue tomorrow.